This old Datsun hasn't run in a decade, and today not only will I make it drive, but I'm also going to road trip it across the country.
We're gonna die.
And it doesn't quite go to plan.
By the looks of it, we have blown a head gasket as well.
So if you already follow me on TikTok, you'll already know about this Datsun, but if you don't, here's a little backstory. So I picked up this old Datsun off a farmer for 800 bucks and it didn't run. The motor was completely seized, but I managed to get it running in the TikTok video, so go check that out. But that's not good enough for me. I plan on driving this thing all the way to Adelaide, but there's a few things we need to work on first.
I don't know if the brakes work, don't know if the clutch works, don't know if the diff's any good or the gearbox is any good, but we're gonna find out. By the end of this video, I'm gonna have this thing driving.
So without a plan, I decided to tackle the Datsun head on and immediately started to regret it. A simple oil change turned out to be not so simple because more than just oil came out.
Oh no, not again.
The Datsun decided to present us with a nice thick creamy 2060 milkshake. Now rather than doing things properly and flushing the motor like you should, I just degreased the filter, I reused it, and then slapped it back together. While it was there, I also replaced a broken freeze plug.
Okay, so that's our water leak. That is supposed to look like that.
So once the freeze plug was changed and the motor was back together, it was time to play with the brakes.
Okay, so the interior on this thing is pretty putrid. It is full of spiders and dirt and rust and just all sorts of yucky shit. I really don't want to climb in it, but we're gonna have to bleed the brakes. Let's see what's under here. Jesus, a big hole in the seat. That's gonna be full of spiders. I really don't want to get in there. You can jump in instead.
No.
Well, I really don't want to get inside it and clean out the interior yet, so we'll pull the wheels off and bleed the brakes.
As with everything on this old Datsun, bleeding the brakes wasn't going to be as straightforward as I hoped either.
Spiders.
Turns out it isn't just the interior that's full of spiders, it's the whole car, and a majority of them were poisonous redbacks. But what I did work out was that fire was the quickest and easiest way to get rid of them. Once the local spider population was exterminated, I was finally able to work on the brakes.
So that's the bleed nipple. That's supposed to keep the fluid in, and it's not in there, and the fluid's still in there, so we've got a problem.
Turns out one of the rubber lines was blocked, and since brakes are important, I did the right thing and replaced the line with a brand new one.
That's definitely not helping. So, it's a new day. About a week ago, I removed this old brake line from the Datsun. Got a new one here, and I'm going to fit it up and finally get the brakes working on this.
So after a little bit of mucking around, we got the new lines fitted up, all 4 brakes bled, and then finally had functioning brakes. But I must have been huffing too much brake cleaner because shortly after that, I went off on a tangent about the mirrors.
The one thing that annoys me the most about this truck isn't the ridiculous amount of rust that's in it, it's these fucking mirrors. They are ugly, they're disgusting, and they just look horrible, so I'm taking them off. Time for a different approach.
Anyway, with that out of the way, it was time to focus on the clutch.
Okay, so got under the car to do a slave cylinder. That's the clutch fork. Supposed to be a slave cylinder there, but there clearly isn't.
So after working out that my slave cylinder had ninja vanished, I decided to rob parts off my Datsun 620 drift car to fix it. Once the slave was back on, the clutch pedal was finally working as it should. Next up on my to-do list was replace a head gasket. Head gaskets are really easy to do on these old pushrod engines. All up, this took me about an hour to change. While torquing the head down, I did run into a slight issue, and that's one of the head studs became quick release. I eventually decided I didn't see that and put it back for moral support. And then I continued putting the engine together like nothing ever happened. Then it was finally time to see if the car would start. It didn't. But after adjusting the ignition timing, I was able to get it to start almost first time. Then it was time to take it for a test drive around the block to see if my hard work had paid off. Now that it had made it around the block, it was time to take it on a proper road trip. But first, we had to kill the spiders inside. After leaving the bug bomb to soak overnight, it was showtime. The destination, a car show on the other side of the city.
There we go, top gear, 4th gear. Don't know how fast we're going. What is that noise? Oh, we're gonna die. Oh, it does not want to accelerate. How fast are we going? 30 miles an hour. We use the metric system here, I don't know how quick that is. There are no mirrors, these things are fucking useless. Ah, people! But on the bright side, my fuel gauge works, but my temp gauge doesn't, so, and neither does the oil pressure gauge, so. Petrol station. Brakes are questionable. Basically non-existent. We didn't die. Call that a success. Probably all the cobwebs and shit burning away.
Hopefully.
Or oil.
After a quick fuel stop, it was time to get back on the road.
Okay, so the objective, make it to the car show, not die, have nothing fall off the car. Are we happy with 1 out of 10? Brakes are so shit. Stop. Everyone's looking at us like we're crazy.
How are we going to know if a cop turns his lights on behind us?
No, we're not. I can't believe that 2 weeks ago we dragged this thing out of a paddock that's been abandoned on a farm for 8 years. The wheels didn't turn, the motor was seized, and now I'm fucking driving it. Either that's a miracle or I'm a lunatic. Everyone's looking at me.
Yeah. Oh god.
Ah! We need to do 80, so we're aiming for 50 mile an hour. My foot is to the floor, and we're sitting on 40 mile an hour. Alright, we're getting on the freeway. Speed limit on the freeway is 100, which is 62 mile an hour. This thing won't go faster than 45, which is about 80 kilometers an hour. Come on, power! 50 mile an hour! It won't go any faster. I think people are moving out of the way just out of fear. I really can't blame them. Alright, we made it, we're on the freeway. Now we just gotta sit like this for half an hour.
Yep.
Ah!
Oh my.
Holy fuck!
What the fuck? They were behind us the whole time.
Probably. Alright, it is really not happy. We are losing power and struggling. Foot to the floor, it's making some fucking funny noises. Won't go any faster. I think we're overheating. I don't know.
Oh.
Oh shit.
Oh fuck.
Alright, jump out and push it off the road.
Oh.
Look at it. Fucking overheated.
A little bit.
Oh yeah, she's on a hose. And looks of it, we have blown a head gasket as well. It's gotten so hot. Alright, well, I'm admitting defeat. We've been here for about an hour and I cannot get it to run. It's blown a head gasket basically. All the spark plugs are white. I pulled them out, I checked them, there's water in the cylinders and it just keeps blowing compression out the radiator. So, calling a tow truck, we didn't make it. Try again next time. So, I've killed the Datsun again and I've decided it doesn't deserve any new parts. So I'm going to reuse this old head gasket and head off my other engine. Give me the head. Got it. There we go.
By this point, I was getting really good at changing the head gasket. Another hour later and the car was running again.
There we go, it's back together and running. It sounds really knocky, like it's about to throw a rod, but... she's a runner. Might spit a rod out at me down the freeway, but I'll do fine. Okay, so the car's still overheating. When we get on the freeway, we do about 100, the car gets hot. It's not boiling over, but it's getting hot. So I thought, because I've already flushed the radiator, we've already replaced the thermostat, that it must be the water pump. So I pulled the water pump out of it, and I'm quite disappointed because there's actually, apart from being dirty, there's actually nothing wrong with it. The fins are all intact, it's still spinning fine, like it's not blocked, there's no reason why this isn't moving enough water. Which is really annoying because I just bought a brand new water pump for it to replace it. I'm still going to fit that, but that means that the radiator is either still blocked or the thermostat's not doing its job or there's just still too much rust in it. So just for the trip, I'm going to bypass the thermostat, I'm going to take it out to keep it cool so it can't get hot, and I'm also going to give that radiator another flush.
24 hours later and it's finally showtime. It's time to try and road trip this rusty, unreliable piece of Datsun 700 kilometres from Melbourne to Adelaide.
Alright, it's 6 AM, it's fucking freezing, it's about 2 degrees here and almost ready to get going.
The ute was loaded up and ready to go, but we were immediately off to a bad start. And by bad start, I mean the car didn't want to.
Come on.
Eventually, we were on our way, but that didn't last very long.
So we're about 15 minutes down the road and we've already got our first failure. I reckon it's burned out the points.
The contacts on the ignition points had burned out, so I gave them a quick clean, topped up the radiator, and then we were on our way again.
Alright. Off we go.
But shortly after, we were on the side of the road again.
Alright, so we have just broken down again, probably 10 minutes down the road from where we last overheated, and it's done a set of points, lost ignition. I thought putting a ballast resistor on it would fix it. Clearly it hasn't. Either that or the points are still shit, so we're going to change them anyway because I've got spares, and hopefully that will fix it. Time will tell. Alright, so there's our old set of points, well, new points, but they've burned out, so they're no good. So here's our actual new set. Okay, hopefully that'll fix our problems. Alright, take 3. We got a 9-hour trip ahead of us. It's not going to make it. I've already used up quite a few spare parts, quite a few fluids. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn around, we're going to take this home, we're going to put the MR2 together, and then we're going to road trip back to Adelaide because there are people waiting at the finish line and I don't want to leave them disappointed. So that's the plan. Let's do it.
Once we'd limped the Datsun home, it was time to put the MR2 back together, but it still didn't have a gearbox in it, so I got my mate Sasha around to give me a chop out. Just 2 hours later and the box was back in the car, and then it was just a quick test drive around the block before we could leave.
Alright, she made it around the block, so she's right to drive 700 k's. Alright, so we are finally back on the road. I can't believe we actually got this thing going. I started pulling the clutch out earlier in the week and I sort of got halfway through. I'm like, oh, I'll just do it after the trip. Well, here we are using it for the trip, so I'm regretting not doing it. But anyway, we're on the way. We're 6 hours ahead of us. We're going to make the most of it. Let's go.
Many long hours later and we had arrived in Adelaide, but we were only welcomed by an empty car park. After weeks of hard work, we had finally made the 700km journey, but we had missed the Horizon Car Show and the Datsun hadn't made it. So instead, we spent the rest of our time there hanging out with Tim from Second Stage. He's building this awesome Corolla drift van, and if you want to see what we got up to, make sure to check out his TikTok, because we had an awesome time. But that's all I've got for this video. The road trip itself wasn't much of a success, but nevertheless, I had a great time trying to bring this rusty old Datsun back from the dead, and I hope you all enjoyed watching it. If you like this style of content and want to see more, please let me know in the comments below. I also post regular updates and videos on all my socials, so click the link in the description to check those out.